Good morning.
Good morning. All
Good
right, I think we're
morning.
on.
It is like the most beautiful morning in Pittsburgh ever this morning.
Right?
I mean,
Like this I could deal with every day and it would be like heaven. Like what is
heavenly.
that?
That's the word.
70, like partially cloudy and cool, no humidity.
Dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, for those people who don't live in the Pittsburgh or the Ohio Valley area, we have a huge amount of cloud cover all year. Kind of second only maybe to Portland, Oregon, Seattle, that, Pacific Northwest, I believe. And I'm serious about that. A lot of cloud cover. So on the one hand, we don't have a lot of skin cancer here, except for the people that are Myrtle Beach, whatnot, and
Snow bunnies.
snow bunnies. And on the other hand, we do all have vitamin D deficiencies here. So, but a day like this is just so welcome, sunny, dry, cool.
I hear this is like San Diego like every day.
Yeah, every day.
So I'm moving tomorrow.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be nice.
Save up your
Oh.
pennies. All right, now we are gonna start the music and let everybody in. How about that?
All right.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well this morning. We were just talking here, Sean and Ellie and I were just talking about what a beautiful day it is here in Western Pennsylvania. We don't get many dry, sunny days. We have a lot of cloud cover in Pittsburgh normally, and it's sunny and beautiful. And it made it a little easier to wake up this morning after a fairly late night last night with 4 Iwo Jima veterans. If any of you were on that program last night, holy mackerel. I mean, we went 2 hours with Woody Williams and Jack Watson and Larry Kirby and Bob Young. And it was absolutely fascinating. If you did miss it, it's worth checking out. It's Woody Williams was something else. I mean, I guess you expect a lot of a Medal of Honor recipient, but his character and his wisdom, and that's a word that I use all the time with our Veterans Breakfast Club events, and his recall were just phenomenal. Sean, I mean, you and I were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, totally. I said I was trying to find the words to describe it, and I really couldn't this morning. Just the amount of recall and the fact that we're saying that they have this amnesia and they can barely remember the day. It's that big. It's that traumatic. It's that historic. But listening to them tell us what they do remember of it was almost life-changing. It like, nothing pales, everything pales in comparison to what that experience was, I'm sure. But they, hearing them tell it was really something else.
And I wonder, how it's usually put with Woody Williams is he took out 7 Japanese pillboxes. But then, like, you have to start, I think for a lot of us, it's like, what is a pillbox? What does taking out mean? How do you have to take it out? And Woody walked us through those steps, and oh boy, that's rough. So it's no wonder that he has traumatic amnesia. But after the whole episode, we left and I took a deep breath and I realized, so I just heard 2 Iwo Jima veterans laughing with each other about how they're lucky that they both have traumatic amnesia. They actually made that joke, like, oh, I don't remember, you don't remember, that's probably a good thing, huh? So anyhow, yeah, my brain is still in last night's program, but good morning, everybody. And I am Todd DiPastino. This is the Veterans Breakfast Club. This is our morning program. We come to you live on Monday nights and on Wednesday mornings. And then we also have Tuesday night events, Greatest Generation Live, which is what we had last night. And this morning we have a few guests. We have Pippa White. Hello, Pippa. Thank you for joining us. I'm I'm going to ask you to unmute just for a second here. You're joining us from where?
I'm on my husband's computer because he has a big screen in his study. So that's why I was searching for my unmute. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yep, we hear you now. Perfectly. And where are you?
I'm joining you from the very middle of the country. I am in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Lincoln, Nebraska. I love Lincoln, Nebraska. I was there
to
once and
Lincoln?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed touring your unicameral legislature.
And it's a
How about-
beautiful, extraordinary Capitol building too.
Yes, yes, it is. Really, really beautiful.
Thank you. for saying
Well,
that.
welcome, Pippa. Pippa is going to do her Julia Parsons impersonation, and we have Julia on also.
Very
And before we get to Pippa and her story, I do want to say hi to Mark Giaquinto. Hello, Mark. I see you there.
Thanks, Todd. Good morning.
Looks like you're hard at work already this morning in an office environment.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. We came back right after Easter, and we're all vaccinated, so we feel comfortable and we're doing what we need to do.
Mark is the president of the Blood Science Foundation, which is the fundraising or maybe funding arm of what we call here in Western Pennsylvania Vitalant, that used to be the Pittsburgh Blood Bank. And the Veterans Breakfast Club is partnering with the Blood Science Foundation to promote blood drives. And I don't want to take your whole spiel here, Mark, but I just want to let people know that we are going to be really promoting blood drives in the next few months because we're going to start opening up and having in-person events, and we want to have blood drives at each one of our in-person events. And also the partnership means that for every blood donation that Americans make, the Blood Science Foundation is going to give the Veterans Breakfast Club $15. Not too shabby. So,
Yeah,
Mark,
yes.
do you have anything you want to, like a visual that you want to share, or do you just have a verbal?
No visual, just
Okay.
some verbal comments, and I'm
Okay.
gonna possibly shock some of you with some of the facts I'm gonna throw at you.
Yeah, and please do throw some facts, because we had this. You're probably going to throw the facts at people the way you threw them at me, and I was certainly shocked by them. So go
Right.
ahead.
So first of all, like Todd said, we're the fundraising arm for Vitalant, which was previously Central Blood Bank for those of you in southwestern Pennsylvania. Vitalant provides the blood to about 50 hospitals in southwestern PA, north to Meadville, into Ohio, down into West Virginia, and east into Westmoreland County. And in that 50 hospitals is all of the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and all of the Allegheny Health Network, as you know, are high tertiary, quaternary hospitals providing transplants and all kinds of support. Besides providing the blood to all those 50 hospitals, what's interesting is that we only locally collect 50% of the blood we use. And you might say, what? How does that happen? Well, there's a few reasons. There's a lot of reasons for it, but I'll give you the two big ones. One is that we are one of the oldest as to aging populations in the country. And so the baby boomers are leaving the ranks of being blood donors and becoming blood users quicker than the younger generation is replacing them in the area. So that's one big reason. The second big reason is that southwestern PA, and specifically Pittsburgh, uses more blood than comparable sized cities across the country because of the high level care that's provided here in the city. We have people coming in from all over the world to have transplants, to have cardiac procedures, to have cancer care. And so that increases the need for the blood. So you couple a greater need with a decreasing population, with an aging population, and you're set up for a potential healthcare crisis coming down the road. In the last 10 years, blood donation in this area has dropped by 50%.
In the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years.
blood donation has dropped by 50%.
in the last 10 years and 30% in the last 5.
Why?
The reasons I just said.
Aging
Decreasing
population.
aging population, exactly those reasons. And so what happens is Vitalant has to go out across the country to areas that have excess blood, mostly rural areas, where they collect more than they don't have the high level of tertiary, quaternary care hospitals in the area. And that's part of their mission, part of their business model is to provide that blood to urban settings such as southwestern PA. So we bring in about $10 million worth of blood a year. Yep, $10 million. That's what it costs us to supplement the local collection. So part of my mission, besides fundraising for the capital needs and those kinds of needs that Vitalant needs, it's also to create awareness of this fact, because blood centers usually do not go out in the media and say we need blood because it causes panic. So the only time they do that is when it's really truly a crisis, after a disaster, after something in Pittsburgh like the Tree of Life shooting that took place a few years ago. Other than that, we don't look for media attention. That's got to change. We need to get out and get our story told. And people need to understand, because I believe people will respond and donate blood or support the mission if they know the facts.
Mark, I see that Leo West has his hand up. Leo, who just celebrated his 93rd birthday. Hello, Leo.
Hi. I gave up until I was 85, and at 85, my doctor advised me to stop, because first of all, they refused me one time because my iron level was off. And at that time, I haven't given since, but I gave for I don't know how many years.
And you are exactly the example of what's happening in the area. And the FDA, who regulates our industry, sets those iron levels. And if your iron level isn't, they've lowered the level of blood. They've raised the level of iron you need in your blood before you can donate, which has taken some people out of the mix of being regular blood donors. So I appreciate, and we appreciate the donations you've done until you've reached, well, you said 85?
85. That's what he said. Yeah.
So again, like Todd said, we've partnered with Veterans Breakfast Club. And so what we've done is we've gone out to organizations, charitable organizations, and have gone to them and said, here's the story with blood. We need help. And we know that you, Foundation X, don't necessarily have, your focus isn't exactly on healthcare or blood, but your focus is on community development, community services, food banks, environmental conservancy. And we said, you can make the money and make a donation directly to those organizations, or you can give it to us and you can get a twofer. You can help save lives. So every blood donation saves 3 people's lives. And on top of that, that money will still be directed to your charitable organization that you've chosen. So like I said, we found an organization who's interested in veterans. And so we contacted Todd. And so we're looking for Veterans Breakfast Club to help us run some drives. And for every blood, and I want to correct on one point, it's not every blood donation, it's every registered donor. So if a person shows up to donate and for whatever reasons, like Leo said, his iron level is insufficient, you still get money for that donation. If you start donating and for whatever reason they have to abort the donation, you still get money for that donation.
Jeff Witherell.
Hey, Mark, one of the things that affected my wife and I is the fact that when we were in Germany, 85, 86, and around that time period, we were affected by Chernobyl, and we were also affected by mad cow disease in the commissaries. And since that time, every year we've asked about when they're lifting the ban on people like my wife and I from giving blood. And I don't know if that's going anywhere or not, but I mean,
When
we
was the
still want to
last-
give blood, but we're not allowed.
When was the last time you asked?
Oh, geez, just this past year.
Okay, yeah, because of COVID, they have loosened up some on the mad cow disease, I know for sure. I
Okay.
can't answer the Chernobyl thing. But it would be worth still asking because blood donations, not just here in southwestern PA, but across the country are decreasing at alarming levels. And the FDA is trying to come up and look at easing some of the restrictions that they had, as long as the blood supply remains safe and the safety to the donors is most important.
Okay,
But I
thank you.
would continue to ask, like I said, and that's what like I said, my mission is to support them through awareness, and if not, potentially financial donations that go into help making sure the blood's here when it's needed.
Okay,
But we appreciate that support.
thank you.
So the bottom line is blood supply is low, blood demand is high. Blood is expensive on the open market. It's much more expensive to buy blood on the open market than it is to draw it from local arms here.
33% more.
33% more. As Joe says here in the comments, it takes 5 minutes to drain a pint of blood from him and an hour to do the paperwork. That sounds like the military, Joe. So you
Yeah,
should.
hurry up.
Anytime.
Wait. It's a real pleasure to give blood when you can, but it seemed to me that every time I donate, another factor had to be introduced. I've got great veins, love to give, and there was a period of time where I had a medical condition where I couldn't. But the relocation of the blood bank donor center, the length of time that kept growing to make the donation were disincentives. And I'm not sure how you get around those things, but that had to have contributed to the downturn.
The FDA regulations impacted it. Whether you're talking about iron levels or you're talking about different restrictions that they've put it, they're all in the light of making sure the blood supply is safe and the donors are safe. But I understand your comments. I just saw somebody wrote their own egg. Okay, O-Neg's platinum.
Oh, Ron,
O-Negs are platinum, boy.
you're platinum.
O-Negs can be used on anybody at any time. And for those of you that are veterans, O-Neg is, we don't have to blood type you. If you're in trauma situation, that's what you use, an O-Neg. The problem is only 7% of the rural nation's population is O-Neg.
I once had I'm sorry, John, Ron, I'm going to interrupt you. You just reminded me, Mark, are you, this is very rude, but are you kind of like a vampire in the sense that, you look at people and you learn that Ron is O negative and all you want is his blood. Just give me your blood. I remember having a really unpleasant conversation with a professional fundraiser years ago. And she said, the key to being a successful fundraiser is every time you look at somebody, you see the dollar signs on their forehead, how much they're worth. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that.
I actually do a presentation on Halloween every year at the Pittsburgh Rotary. And we play off that whole vampire thing. Just to keep it light.
Peter Thens, you have your hand up.
Hey, morning, guys.
Morning.
I'm kind of in the same boat that Jeff is, and I was hoping. Now, about a month ago, I did try to give blood. I happened to be over to VA, and they were still like, no, because I was actually in England or in Scotland visiting family when the whole mad cow disease. I went to a McDonald's one day and everything was on the menu, and the next day I went and it was only chicken. All the beef had been taken off, and plus some of the deployments I've been on as well. I have O-Neg. I don't mind getting stabbed. I used to give blood all the time when I was in the military, but is there some way that we could get a definite, because every time I ask, they're like, oh, we're not sure. We'll get back to you on that. Well, we all know how that goes.
Now, you said you were at the VA and donated.
Well,
Or
I
you
have, no,
try-
no, no. I had to give blood work for my labs. And I said, every once in a while, the thought tickles my mind, hey, I'd like to give blood. But, I was banned years ago because mad
Because
cow.
of mad cow
deployment.
disease.
Yeah, mainly mad cow. But
Yeah.
then somebody told me at some point, some places I'd been deployed to, yeah, they were, that was on the list as well. But it just doesn't seem like anybody has the right answer, yes or no.
You know what, Mark? Let's because I'm in the same situation with mad cow disease. Let's get a definitive answer to that for Vitalant, so
Yeah,
we could get the word out when we publicize our blood drives. That's I'm going to write that down because that probably is a common issue of our vets who were deployed to Europe in the 80s.
yeah, I know for a fact that because of COVID, they have released some of the restrictions that they've had on mad cow disease. I'm not a clinical person who knows all the blood regulations because they changed. I can get somebody to talk to you, Todd,
Okay.
who can provide you the answer that you could share with everybody.
Okay. And the other answer that I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, go.
I was going to say the other answer that you'll provide or somebody at Vitalant will provide will be, exactly the code you have to use if you go to donate blood and you want $15 to go to the Veterans Breakfast
Yep.
Club, and with the number you should call. We are going to have a blood mobile at our July 14th picnic in Beaver County at 2 Mile Run. Also, for those of you in the South Hills, we've scheduled another breakfast at Christ United Methodist Church in Bethel Park on August 28th. We have details forthcoming about that. I know, John DeLallo, finally, hallelujah. But I'd love to have the blood mobile there for that as well.
Yeah.
So, we'll get the details out to people.
Right, and the code we set up that when you have the our coordinator working with you, Todd, to set those up.
Yep.
That code will be provided at that time.
Got it.
And
Got
that
it.
coordinator also can answer those questions about I'll make sure I get them for you, but they can answer those questions about the mad cow disease, Chernobyl, and some of the other items that are preventing people from donating blood.
Right. Chris Perillo and then Ben Wright.
Mark, I have O-negative blood too, but isn't there a process where you donate plasma instead of whole blood, and that is used to make products?
Well, whole blood is used to make products. Blood, when you donate plasma, the plasma centers, first of all, are for-profit collection sites.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I just know that when I used to do that, I would go and they would hook me up to a machine. It would take a longer time, but was that plasma?
So if you went to Vitalant, and you donated whole blood would be then taken to the lab and manufactured into different products, plasma, platelets, cryoprecipitate, and some other products. You could donate directly plasma, which of course is the more liquid part of the blood, which is used in specific instances. Yes, that's a longer process. So yes, you could donate plasma, and we would give you credit for that also. But at the time, I'm not saying you should switch from plasma to whole blood, but at this point in time, whole blood is in very short supply.
All right, used to do that because they said that O-negative was preferred from O-negative people.
Okay.
And
Could be at that time. Again, it moves back and forth depending on what our inventories are and what's going on and what time of the year we are.
All right, I just want to make the best use of the blood I give.
And when you show up at the donation site, the person you're working with to draw the blood will ask you some questions and say, are you open to single donor platelets? Are you open to plasma? Are you open? They know what the need is every day. They get versed on, we're looking for this, we're looking for that. And so that changes depending on what's going on in our region.
And Ron Sachin, even you could donate blood in Parker, Colorado, and have the proceeds go to the Veterans Breakfast Club,
Wow.
even remotely in Colorado, from my understanding. So
That's correct.
I'll have to make sure to get that code to you, Ron. Ben Wright.
Yeah, I was curious if you could still donate blood in a person's name. I haven't had this happen in years, but years ago, I had a good friend who was underinsured that had ruptured blood vessel. By the time he got to hospital, they'd lost half his blood volume. It was quite an undertaking that he even survived. But at that time, to help bring down the cost of their medical care, people could donate blood in their name to alleviate the blood supply. And I know a whole bunch of friends went and donated blood and put it in this person's name. And I didn't know if that was still a possibility or not.
It's not as big of a practice as it used to be. I believe there still are instances where that occurs.
Bud,
Yes.
Joe
Hey,
Wisniewski.
How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Good.
Excuse me. I just donated blood here last Thursday, not through the VA, but there was a blood drive out here in Westier Township, and they asked me if I was still giving in the name of a young fella that had some sort of leukemia. So yeah, apparently yes, you can still give in somebody's name, that they get credit for it. But I was also, as they were taking my blood or asking me questions and that, the lady said to one of the other people working there, "Do we need trauma?" And I started looking at what the heck's going on trauma? And I asked her, and she says, "Well, we're going to take your blood, and your blood is given it whole this time rather than as platelets." And she says, "We'll take it and use this like on life flight."
Yeah.
And I had never taken that into consideration. I've been giving blood for many, many moons, and it just took me aback that when she told me that we use for trauma.
Yeah, whole blood. There's a whole new, based upon research, whole blood has benefits and used in trauma situations. So we collect whole blood. We don't manufacture. We leave it in just as it is in the whole blood, and it's used on the helicopters, the air helicopters for trauma situations. Yes.
And one other thing I noticed, prior to them, they took a lot more vials before it started to go into the bag. I don't know if that is a newer practice or I had never noticed it before. Individual vials.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take a shot at it, but were there more than 3 vials that were taken?
Yeah, it seemed to me that there was.
Yeah,
I
wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't want to take a shot at trying to answer that. But usually there's 3 vials. One is sent to a testing lab to make sure that it goes through all the proper channels to make sure it's safe for transfusion. Then one is kept on file in case there's a recall or something happens. We can go back and have a vial of that blood. I forget what the third one is, but I know there's usually 3 vials before the bag is filled.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer.
The extra vial went to the vampire. That's my theory.
But I have a question for Mark.
Yes,
Sure.
Ron.
Okay. I still have my Central Blood Bank card that I got back in the 1970s. Okay. But I can remember Central Blood Bank doing drives and calling us on the phone and saying, "We're going to be at a certain location. Are you willing to donate?" Like they would come out to the North Hills to an office out on McKnight Road. Do you folks still do that?
Yes, we have 10 fixed sites that people can go to, but people have left the ranks of donating blood because they were tired of getting phone calls.
Yeah.
And so people basically said, "I want on the no call list." So there are still calls made, not in the frequency that they were in the past, except if you're ONAID. And the websites have taken that place in a lot of, you can go to the Vitalant website to see every drive, location, date, time that's going on in the next few weeks.
How do you spell Vital?
Vitalant, Vitalant.
Vital.
Lant.
Thank you.
And I'll give you the locations of what the drives are, the fixed sites, the addresses of the fixed sites. There is still one in the North Hills. It's one of the most productive ones in the company.
If you want to put that information, Mark, in the chat here, we can transfer it over also to the Facebook side and let people know locally here in the Pittsburgh area where they can donate. And we'll also be getting out the information about the Veterans Breakfast Club partnership and blood donation very soon when I hear back from the folks from Vitalant.
One more question. If I go to donate at one of the other locations, should I tell them that I'm donating on behalf of the Veterans Breakfast Club?
Yeah, you say you don't get this arm until the Veterans Breakfast Club gets their money. That's what you say. Mark, is that correct?
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Question
I'm
real
sorry.
quick. If I give 2 vials, does VBC get double?
Drain them. Keep
I
them
usually
alive.
give 2.
Keep them alive, but take as much as you can possibly.
I'll give a whole pint. You can pull out, give me back my platelets. VBC doesn't need those, but if you take another.
Ellie, you too. Drainer.
Overachievers.
Overachievers.
We like those overachievers.
Back in the day,
Be cleared and I'll give you mine.
back in the day in the service at Pearl Harbor, guys would go in what they called Vampire Liberty. Give blood to get a couple of bucks to go get a drink or two.
Yeah. And can I ask, I know, and Pippa, thank you for your patience sitting through this conversation about blood and whatnot. I do want to, before we go to Pippa, I do want to go to Ron Gianta to see if there's an update from the VA. But I also, and Mark, I don't know if there's other information you want to share. There may be other questions out there. Mark Giaquinto from the Blood Science Foundation. But I did want to ask, this reminds me, I think I remember reading that in Vietnam, servicemen and women gave blood regularly, didn't they? And when you're in the military, do you give blood regularly for military purposes? Leo West, you could unmute yourself.
When I was in Austria, well, no, the whole time I was in the service, when you gave blood, you got a day off. And what they did, they had a roster, and they'd call you alphabetically. Unfortunately, my name was at the end. I never got a day off.
You hear that, Ellie? We give blood, we get a day off.
Right. Just like Leo. Don.
Good morning. I can attest to that Vampire Liberty. When I was at Naval Communications Center, Guam, we gave blood as often as we can for that reason. We were young then, we were stupid, but what would happen is the word got out, if you give blood, instead of getting a buzz after 6 beers, you would get a buzz after 3 beers. So we would schedule on our day off, give our blood, go up to the swimming pool area, get 3 Budweisers out of the machine, we were good to go. So that Vampire Liberty is not just a sea story. That was pretty common. I'm sure there's other stories out there as well. But all seriousness aside, I think it's a noble cause, number one, much needed. And also the fact that if the Veterans Breakfast Club is going to promote a blood drive or something like that, I think that's outstanding. I'm sure many of us who are able to donate blood like that will step to the plate. I'll be the first one. If you need a first guy, you can call on me.
Wonderful, Don. Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Mark, I have a new marketing campaign. Get buzzed after 3 beers instead of 6. Give blood.
There you go.
Chris Perolo.
The first time I ever gave blood was in boot camp, and it was in the 6th week, and it was a Sunday, and they said, if you give blood, we'll take you out of the recruit center and over to the main base, and you can be in the rec hall, play pool, all the snacks and Coke you wanted. And it was my first liberty was to get out of boot camp and go over to the main side and give blood. So it was not noble, but it was there's always blood drives in the military.
Did any veterans give blood and fake passing out so that you could get a nap in? Joe, you're shaking your head.
Dennis McCarthy.
When I was overseas, we worked a 6.5 day work week. And if you gave blood, you got the rest of the day off. So it wasn't liberty or anything, but you got pulled off the job, you gave blood, and you sacked out.
And can I, and that Dennis was a Navy CB in Vietnam. Can I ask you, for those of you who were, say, in Vietnam, would there be blood drives would you be asked to give bloods because there was a battle and there were a lot of casualties? Or didn't it work like that? Is that not how the Army or these evac hospitals got their blood? Does anybody know? Like Mark?
Well, I can only speak for myself. When we were working at a Army field hospital, it's when we got the most calls because they would take the fresh blood and use it in trauma right away.
Yeah.
I don't recall the rest of the time when we were working on other job sites.
Okay.
Giving blood as an 11B had a totally different connotation than it did as a 71F. So,
well, see, tell me about that. 11B, that's 11 Bravo, that's infantry. 71F is postal.
Well, yeah, it was clerical at that point. Well, and the reason being is we were in the field most of the time, came back, and we were kind of run down anyways, physically. So I think that, we were never really asked while in Vietnam to donate blood as I don't know. I'm not speaking for the entire Vietnam veterans group on here, but for me, that was the experience I had.
Yeah.
And we did give blood, but it was just in a different manner. It wasn't bagged, Mark.
You gave blood all right, but it wasn't, all right.
I recall they would have asked for blood donations in Mito, where I was at, and they said that they would prefer people who weren't taking malaria medicine.
That's it.
Okay. And what it was a trick to catch you so that you get back on the malaria drug routine, anti-malaria drug routine.
That's right. Now, why would people not take the malaria drug? And I'm going to ask you that, Joe, but I also want to corner Mark Sprague, the Dosi, because I know that you got malaria when you were in Vietnam. Joe, why would people not take their malaria drugs?
You're asking me?
There was a side effect. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I had problems taking the malaria drug because it would give me the runs. I walked around with a whiskey bottle full of K-pectate in it all the time, and would try to any C rations that had peanut butter or anything like that, or cheese or spread cheese, anything to try to relieve it. And I was to the point where they were about to send me home.
It was that bad? Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. But
I had it somewhat. I didn't have it quite as bad as you, Joe, but any decent Viet Cong would not have come anywhere near any of our base camps whenever I was on the malaria pill.
Yeah, those malaria pills had really, really bad, serious side effects. They could have psychoactive side effects, I've heard.
Maybe that's what happened to me.
And I don't know. No, Atabrine. Was it Atabrine, or was that World War II version of the malaria drug?
It was quinine.
Quinine.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Jim Roberts.
Right. You asked, the medicine was chloroquine where I was. But the runs were the problem. The medic would give us the malaria pill on Sunday, and then he'd hand us a Lomotil pill on Monday.
Oh, wow.
To shut down and then he'd give us the brown bomber on Saturday so we could start the cycle all over again. But we were far enough out in the boonies, they never came to us and asked for blood.
They never came to, okay. I bet you didn't expect this kind of a conversation, Mark, huh?
I didn't.
See what you started?
No, hey, it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. And I hope you'll join us again. And maybe we'll do a reminder, down the road. Do you have anything else you want to let people know about?
2 quick thoughts. First of all, I want to thank everybody on the call for your service whenever you did it, whether it's Vietnam, Korea, whatever. Appreciate that service. Secondly, I will get answers on the mad cow disease and the coding and everything like that, and get somebody in touch with you, Todd, as to how best to disseminate and distribute that information.
Great. Wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you very much, Mark.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. And we have a lot of money to hopefully get to the Veterans Breakfast Club. We just need to come up with the blood donations.
Drain them all. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I know before we get to Pippa, Ron Giunta, do you have anything from the VA you want to let us know about? Any update?
Yeah, really talk. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. You know, the VA's been giving COVID-19 vaccinations to all the veterans, and now they're to include the Army and the Air Guard, the Reserves and the Coast Guard. They're providing vaccinations to spouses and surviving spouses of veterans, just as a reminder, but also to the caregivers of veterans for COVID-19 vaccine eligibility. They need to be defined as either a caregiver, as a family member, or a friend who provides care for a veteran. Also, June is PTSD Awareness Month for employees of the VA. But I was reading this article that said that basically that there's 8 million people in the United States that suffer from some form of PTSD, and it doesn't have to be combat related. So if somebody knows a veteran who's having issues, they can give us a call to make an appointment to come in and talk to us about possibly filing a claim at area code 412-360-2832, or send us an email message to arrange for an appointment at pcu@vbapit@va.gov. Now, I'm going to share something also in the chat. Let me see here. I was reading something that came out from the VA, and I thought this was interesting, that the Enlisted Association of the National Guard of the United States provides assistance for veterans. I wasn't aware of that. And I just provided the website and their toll-free phone number. It's called Operation Vet Care, and it's a project where the Enlisted Association will help veterans with assistance they may need, like with maybe home repairs, car repairs, or anything like that. So if there's a veteran out there that needs a little bit of help in doing something to their home, here's another avenue of assistance for our veterans.
Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you for the work you do on behalf of our veterans.
You're welcome.
And so you'll put information there in the chat. We could also transfer it over to the Facebook side.
Perfect.
Appreciate that. I want to welcome Pippa White again from Lincoln, Nebraska. Just to give people context, a couple months ago, I got an email from Pippa saying, could I connect her with Julia Parsons? Because you're interested you perform historical figures on stage, and you wanted Julia to be part of your performance. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what the kind of performances that you do and why you thought Julia would be a good character to perform.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I actually began with orphan train riders many, many years ago, because I live here in the Midwest, and many orphan train riders came to the Midwest. And when I wanted to do some solo storytelling work, I thought to myself, I wonder if there are any dramatic stories about that orphan train. Well, there were a lot, and it kind of opened a door to me, making me realize that history is just full of extraordinarily dramatic stories. So there is a big renaissance in storytelling now, and there are all sorts of storytelling choices, but I stick to the history just because I've grown to love it, and it's kind of become my thing. So with regards to Julia, I thought I have a couple of programs. One, a program called Saints, Soldiers, and Spies, Women and War. And so, good for you. And I have one about called Voices from the Resistance also. And anyway, when I thought of the code breakers, I thought, I would love to have a code breaker story. So I Googled World War II code breakers, and several sites featuring Julia popped up, and I emailed them. I emailed, I think, at least one television station and a couple of other institutions, and no one got back to me. And so I went and Googled her again, and there you were, Todd, with your Veterans Breakfast. And so I thought, well, maybe they will answer, and you did. So I'm very, very grateful to you, because this has been a wonderful experience, and I know it's going to be a huge plus to my repertoire. It really will.
And I'm sharing your website, pippawhite1company.com, and you can see all the different stories or characters that you've performed, that you do perform: saints, right, soldiers, spies, women in war. I love this stuff. And you will do these, you kind of schedule these. You could schedule any one of these.
I kind of go where anybody wants me. Now, I have been doing a lot of storytelling festivals of late, which is a little bit different, because you're usually outside in a big tent, and in the tent are actually many hundreds of people. Sometimes, though, I will get a request to do the orphan train program at a school, at a university, at a library, at a museum, and the same with many of the other programs you're seeing going by here. So the storytelling venue is a little bit different, but also very enjoyable. And I'll be able to include Julia's story, I think, in a number of different ways. So I'm excited about it, very excited. And I thank you.
Here's a description of your Voices from the Resistance, and I love the fact that you have a study guide available. And it's just bringing history to life is so important, because so many times I've heard from, I'm a historian and I taught history for many years, and so many times I've heard from people that, history was the worst, the most boring class. You got a list of dates, you got a list of battles, and you had to match them. And that isn't history. That's memorization. History really is the stories, like the kind that we hear, at the Veterans Breakfast Club.
I'm sure.
Julia, I want to ask Julia, how do you feel about somebody performing your story on stage?
Where'd she go?
Oh, I think oh no, she's there. Hey, Julia, we lost your picture. If you could unmute yourself and turn your camera back on, we could see you and we could hear you. I know that you're still there, so you're not dropped off the program. Pippa, have you kind of written the character sketch yet?
As much as I can that are their words, and if I need to pay rights, I write to the right person, and I pay a small royalty, or at least I get the permission from someone to do that. I like to do first person, and I like what I'm saying to be what that person said. So I do some writing that as transitions and that kind of thing. And in some programs, like that orphan train program, I do tell a lot of the history. So I'm usually going from narrator history into character, back and forth like that in almost every performance piece.
And so to prepare for or write this program, did you interview Julia?
Julia sent me interviews of other people. She sent me DVDs. She sent me written material. It has been a wonderful experience. Yes. And the script that I'm using, I have run by Julia. So
you've written the script.
I've taken what I have gathered from all these things she has sent me, and yes, but I mean, most of the words are hers right from the very beginning, when she says on December 7th, 1941, she was driving down Ardmore Boulevard in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so, so much of what I'm using are her words.
How about that, Julia? Have you heard Pippa perform you? Oh, we can't hear you. Gold darn it. I think that must be the earphone issue again, Julia. May want to take out your headphones. I think that's the issue. Remember? Yeah. No, we don't. I don't hear you now. No. Oh, darn it. Usually Ellie and nope, can't hear you. I'm sorry about that, Julia.
Could we attempt to put her in the weight room and then bring her back in?
Yeah, let's do that. Could you do that, Ellie or Sean? Julia, we're
Julia.
going to put you in the waiting room, then we're going to bring you back. She's gone. Okay, she'll be back from the waiting room. Pippa, could you share any of the script, with us or your?
What I'm doing with Julia?
Yeah. Hi,
Yes,
Julia.
yes. I wanted, and I hope she can still hear me, because my thing is kind of hats, because I'm always changing character. I put different hats on to represent different people. And I got on eBay just 2 or 3 days ago and found a Waves hat. And it's exactly like the one in the picture that Julia had sent me with her Waves hat. So that has not arrived yet. But
is it the white Waves hat? Or the,
pardon?
Is it
Am I
white
on now?
or, yeah, you're on now, Julia.
Good. I can hardly hear, but that's the way it goes.
Well, why don't you try to put your earphones in and see if that works? See if we could get that to work. Because we want you to hear. This technology is always tricky.
Now say something.
Hey, could you? We hear you. We hear you.
I'm
fine.
on. Am I in?
Yep, you're in.
Good.
You're in.
Wow, I don't know what happened there. That's amazing. Anyway, I was just thrilled to talk to Pippa. She's just been so agreeable and so interesting. And I was interested to hear what she would have to say in my voice. That was kind of excited about that. It was a different experience.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about that too. And I wonder, Pippa, there's every life is complicated. Every life has, a lot of aspects to it. How do you choose kind of the Julia that you're going to present to the world? How do you select the stories that you think deserve to be, crammed into the 75 minutes or hour that you have planned for the production?
Thank you for asking that. I like to look for things that have some dramatic tension. There are all sorts of different kinds of storytelling. If you go to a storytelling festival, you'll get ethnic tales, you'll get personal stories, you'll get old folk tales, you'll get everything. But I tend to like to look for things that have a little bit of dramatic edge in them. And I saw that in much of what Julia had to share.
Yeah, so did I. And I'm wondering what you've selected from her story. Like what are 2 or 3, dramatic points in Julia's story? Because I certainly can think of a few more than that, but I'm wondering which ones kind of popped out at you.
Here's one. And Julia, were you able to hear when I said I found a Waves hat?
Oh, no. Oh, for goodness sake.
On eBay, I found a hat, and it's exactly like the one you are wearing in that picture. So when I do this, it hasn't arrived yet, but when I do this, I'll have the hat. So here's a little bit of the script, Todd. Okay. This is a part that I like. Let me get in gear here. I was on duty when there was a very exciting breakthrough. We had a difficult week. We'd not been able to break any codes, and we were all getting kind of discouraged. So we made a big spreadsheet of all those messages, and we noticed that someone somewhere had been a little careless. The Germans always included a weather report in the messages that they sent to their fleet, and that makes perfect sense, of course, because sailors need to know what the weather is. But we noticed that someone somewhere had used the same wording over and over again in each message to talk about the weather report. On Monday, the weather in the Bay of Biscay will be such and such. On Tuesday, the weather in the Bay of Biscay will be such and such. On Wednesday, and so on and so on. As soon as we noticed that they hadn't bothered to change the wording in the code, we had stopped the traffic. We'd broken the traffic. We still got a new code every single day. Every single day it was a new code. But knowing that the weather report was going to be the same, we found a way in. So that's part of it, Todd, part of the script. I also talk, as I told you, about how she became a wave. And what really touched me so much, Julia, which I also am including towards the end, is that you were not informed that what you had had to keep so top secret for so many years had been declassified. And so it wasn't until quite late in your life that you were able to get the credit that you so richly deserved. And so I am making sure that audiences know the whole story because there, hey.
Oh, very good. Oh, looks so authentic.
eBay time.
That is a hat that's for sale. And imagine it must be just like the one that you're about to receive, because that's an officer's hat.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, you're making it. I'm on this big screen in my husband's. I hadn't seen it so big and beautiful. That's going to be great.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
Get back to what I was saying. It's a whole circle kind of thing. And so the decoding part is all very exciting. But I'm just so glad, Julia, that now, even though it is late in life, you're getting the attention that and the gratitude that you deserve. So that's definitely going to be part of the whole.
Oh, well, thank you. Todd has given me a lot of attention, but I haven't heard much about gratitude, except that he did give me that glorious parade for my birthday.
Yes, and I heard about that. And
yes.
That video for me. That's fabulous.
Pippa, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't thought of the gratitude issue that is gratitude delayed. I never put those two things together. That part of what I understood was that Julia couldn't talk about it. Her father couldn't be proud of her for the work that she was doing.
Right.
Her husband couldn't know what work she did during the war. Her family couldn't know the kids growing up. I thought of it as like something that Julia couldn't share with people, with loved ones. But I didn't think about it, and I should have, that we as the American people didn't get the opportunity to thank people like Julia for the work that she did.
Right, and of course, exactly right. The historians say that the code work shortened the war by 2 to 3 years. And how many lives were saved because of that?
Absolutely. Code work was so important in Europe and the Pacific, so critically important. Do people have questions or comments? Oh, Don Nemchek asks, Sean has a question. Don asks in the chat, where can we view Pippa's performance of Julia?
Well, I think the first time I will be doing this is at the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival. That is the weekend of September 9th, 10, 11. And that's in Utah. But they say that they're going to, because last year in 2020, they had to have a virtual festival. First time in many, many years, they had to have a virtual festival, of course. So it was popular enough that they have decided that they will record us live at that festival in September, and then it will also be presented virtually. So I don't know exactly when they will put that virtual storytelling festival up. I'm going to assume probably late December, mid to late December, but, September. I don't know why I said December, September. But so that's probably going to be the first time I do it. Now, as I told you, I get many requests. Sometimes some women's history group will want me, so I'm going to slip it in where I can. And so,
do you do Zoom only performances? Like, could we schedule something with you so that you wouldn't have to leave Lincoln, Nebraska and come to Pittsburgh or wherever and do an event that would be a closed kind of Zoom event?
Oh, okay. Yes, sure. We could, okay. You bet we could work on something like that. Right now, I am in the process of memorizing a lot of new material for this September event, because they had me last year and they don't usually ask you back. But here's interesting. You might find this interesting. the festival will be on Saturday, September 11th is one of the days, 9, 10, 11. And that's going to be the 20th anniversary, of course, of September 11th, 2001. And because I'm doing history and many storytellers don't, they wanted me to tell some stories from September 11th, which is going to be a little bit difficult, you know, because it's a tragedy and yet at the same time. So I'm working on a lot of new material for this festival, and I don't think they would have had me back 2 years in a row, except that they had to have someone to do the history, because they felt you can't have a festival on September 11th about storytelling without including that anniversary, tragic though it may be.
Especially on the 20th anniversary.
Exactly.
Sean, what was your question?
I have a ton of questions. Pippa, it's great to meet you. I have a background in acting, so I'm checking out your website and I see that you have 18, these are all 18 one-woman shows, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes I switch and pull and, you know, sort of build one by switching and pulling.
Okay. And what would you say is like the average length of each one-woman show?
Well, you know, the ones that look like, I call them my one acts. And that is, I stick with one subject matter the whole way through, as in the Orphan Train or the Ellis Island or the Resistance. And those run about 70 to 75 minutes each. But then when I do something like Woman's Work or Women in War, Saints, Soldiers, and Spies, I take more things that are episodic and I introduce them to all sorts of different people. It's sort of, you don't see the same orphan train riders or the same immigrants, the same characters that you do in those other shows. So some of them I can do. Sometimes people will want 25 minutes and sometimes they'll want 90 minutes. And I can do both. So you have a theater background? You're a vet with a theater background.
I'm not a veteran. Todd and I are both not veterans. Ellie as well, part of the Veterans Breakfast Club. But I sort of got my start in theater and also had a passion for veteran stories, which sort of led me to VBC. But you know, you say you're working on memorizing sort of some new material. I don't know if people realize how difficult, because I'd love personally, like as an actor, you know, doing a one-man show or like a one-person show is sort of like a passion. You're just like, oh, that would be incredible to be able to learn that much material and really dive into a character and be on stage and working through that with an audience. Like there's a lot that goes into that. But I think the incredible thing here is that you have 18 shows in your head. That is an incredible amount of material to memorize and be able to perform on the spot.
Well, and on the spot, that's the key expression there. A few of those that I have done hundreds of times, I can do right now. But many of them, I have to kind of get them back. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it takes me 2 or 3 rehearsals and then I'm ready. So I seldom go anywhere without a rehearsal. If it's a last minute thing and they're wanting something that I do all the time, then I will. But you know how it is. I mean, some of these storytelling festivals, I've had audiences from the size of about 15 in small Nebraska towns way out west to at the National Storytelling Festival in 2019, the audiences were 1,700. And when you look out at that,
there's an awesome sort of give and take with that audience. You know, I worked a part of a theater for a time and we had a lot of one-person shows happening. But watching that interplay is something that is really exciting. And the stories that you get out of a one-person show are so much more intimate than you get maybe when you see a full cast. So I really commend you on having this material and creating it yourself and then presenting it. It's quite wonderful.
Well, thank you for saying that, Sean. And I want to tell you how it all began. I did work in theater and television on the West Coast. I grew up in San Francisco and I got a good start in that career. And then I met a man and I married him and he took me to Nebraska and I thought it was going to be a short time. He teaches at the university, but it turned into permanent. And so it was kind of out of a sense of desperation, Sean, that I thought, well, what am I going to do? And we have a very strong arts council, a state arts council in Nebraska. It's very, very strong. And they had a touring program. And I thought, well, if I can just think of something, I'll get on their touring program. And the first thing I thought of was the Orphan Train Riders. But then, as I said, it just grew. But it kind of all happened because of desperation, Sean.
Incredible. And is there a bit of like improv play within each show, or is this full scripted?
I'm a person that's mostly comfortable with a script. Sometimes, you never know what will happen, but I'm pretty scripted.
And one last question is what leads you to each individual woman's story that you want to tell? What is like the seed that says, oh, I really want to tell that story?
As I said to Todd, it's that drama. And when I was first looking at those orphan train rider stories, some would have, I wanted an arc, and the arc was the kids on the street and why they were in orphanages or on the street. Then well, not too much orphanage experience, but the ride itself on the train, and then the families that took them, the lives they got. And looking at those stories, and I had a number to choose from, some had an interesting part in one of those places, but not the whole arc. So I had to find stories that were interesting, why they were orphans. And of course, many of them were not technically orphans. They were neglected children. Right. What happened on the train, and then the families they got. And in that program, some got wonderful families and some did not, but that's the history, right?
Right. Todd, I think it'd be wonderful if we could do a world premiere on Zoom of Julia's story from Pippa.
Well, now what I have for Julia now is about 10 minutes or maybe a little less, because I'm putting her into like women in war, woman's work, that kind of thing. So I would love to see you all again in that.
That would be so neat. And I have the same amazement that Ron Sachin expressed in the chat here, that pardon the bluntness of it, but that your memory is so good that you could remember the script. I mean, my gosh, Pippa, there's no way I could do that.
Oh, I look at a 1 or 2 page monologue and I'm like, okay, that's going to take some time to sort of build. Yeah. That's why, I mean, these are, it's about a 50 pages roughly?
No. They're single spaced. Those scripts are 17, 18 pages.
Okay, still.
No way, couldn't do it. So yeah, so Ron says, teleprompters, notes. I mean, what do you use? I give history lectures. I've got a screen behind me. If I forget my place, I look up on see what my slide is, and that prompts my memory. But wow.
Well, you know what? I think actors just get used to it, and it becomes a skill. A skill, and I do memorize quickly, but that doesn't mean it's solid for a long time. And that's why I mentioned that I'm trying to get ready for this storytelling festival with this new material. When you look out at a very huge audience and the person before you was just really funny and everybody was laughing, and it does. I still get stage fright. I'm not ashamed to say that. I still get stage fright. And if it's not absolutely solidly memorized, it can go when you're frightened like that. Sometimes I think I do my best shows in those small towns in Nebraska because I don't get nervous. But on the bigger venues, I do. So as for the memorizing, I memorize quickly. It doesn't take me long to do that 17 pages, Sean. But is it solid? And you know what I mean by solid.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Is it in your bones? You don't have to really think about what the next word is. You're there. So as for the memorizing, a lot of people think that that's the hard part of what actors do. But really, I think the harder part is, finding that character and convincing the audience, hopefully, that you're not.
You are that character. Yeah. Deborah, can you ask your question that you put in the chat?
Hello, Deborah.
Hi, Pippa. Thank you for being here with us. I just had a quick question. You were saying you had an arc that you developed your stories from. So that made me wonder, did you ever pull from different people's stories and write a fictional, where it isn't actually historically related to one specific person?
A composite character.
Right, there.
when I started, I thought that that's what I would do. When I first got this orphan train idea, I thought that's what I'll do. And then, interestingly enough, this was in the early 90s. Now, if you go to a library, there are dozens of books about the orphan trains for children, right up to, scholarly stuff. But when I started my research in my library, there were 2 books, but they both had the personal stories. And when I saw the personal stories, I thought, who needs historical fiction?
Yeah.
Nothing is better than this.
Yeah. Real life.
Always look for the real thing, and it's there. Sometimes it takes a lot of searching. I go to museums and I go into the book section in the museum gift shop, and I notice that there's always a little treasure of oral histories, and that's what I buy. And so I know there are people who like the historical fiction idea, but I decided, no, I've got this extraordinary story about this person's life. That's what I want to share. So my mandate is history and true stories. I have a number of very good true stories that I tell, which are not really associated with a historical event. But so I've just sort of come to love truth. And you know who said truth is stranger than fiction, everybody? You know who said that? It was Mark Twain. And it's a longer quote. He said, truth is stranger than fiction. I want to get this right. Truth is stranger than fiction. And it is because fiction demands possibility. Truth doesn't. And haven't we all lived long enough to know that Twain was right?
That is really good.
Yeah. So great question, Deborah, but I just know that the true story that I'm looking for is out there somewhere. Sometimes it takes me a long time to find it, and I'm a kind of a restless, impatient person. So it's amazing I keep looking, but I know it's there.
I want to ask Julia, and maybe you might want to take a minute to think about this, Julia. What story or two or aspect of your life or fact about your life that you would want to have somebody perform or tell or dramatize or get across,
Getting
what do you want to have told about yourself? And I don't know if you have a answer to that right away, or you want to think about that for a little bit.
Well, I'm thinking of when I went back to college when I was 40 to get my teaching certification. And I had just read in the paper that the Carnegie Mellon had opened their ranks to alumni. Before that, if you were 40, there was nowhere you could go. But suddenly they opened the ranks, and I was there the next morning. And the man I talked to, the dean of the girls' school, he said, well, your transcript is in the morgue. He said, we'll have to dig that out.
Oh,
and from there on, it was, I was the only one in the whole school that was beyond senior age. And there was a boy in one of the classes. And so he and I sat together because we weren't part of the rest of the group. But that was such an interesting experience to get back into studying again and writing papers and so on. It was really exciting. And I still had the family, of course, and everything to do that I had before, but it was worth it. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. But it was for me a very exciting change. And I did that for 2 years, just took 2 or 3 subjects a semester until I got my teaching certification. And of course, teaching itself is an exciting thing, and I never thought I would like it, and I loved it.
What did you teach?
I loved it. English, high school English. And then we got transferred. My husband was transferred to London, and that was the end of my teaching career. But it was 5 years long, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really an exciting thing for me. So a lot of exciting things happened in my life, and living overseas was certainly interesting. And does that answer your question?
It does. It does answer my question. And I just think when I think of you kind of searching out for experiences that could be almost as interesting as the ones that you had during the war. You know, as a woman in 1945, after the war was over and your job in the waves ended, it was hard, I think, for a woman to engage the world of work in a fulfilling way that an intellectually curious and creative and, you know, smart person like you could get some fulfillment from. And
I want to say, Todd, and Julia knows this, in the script, even before she finds the waves work, I mentioned that she said she loved, in high school and college, she loved physics and science and math and had wanted to be an engineer. And she said every time she told someone she wanted to be an engineer, there was just laughter.
They thought it was very amusing that a woman would want to be an engineer. And now they're all over the place.
Right.
It's wonderful.
Right.
I'm happy to see it.
Right. But that too is part of the whole, I think, in this, in Julia's story.
Nick DeVoe, you messaged me here in the chat. I had the same exact thought about Pippa. I didn't quite think of it in terms of the accent. If you want to unmute yourself and ask it, please do. This is Nick DeVoe from St. Lucia. What is the temperature in St. Lucia right now, and what's the weather like there?
It's slightly overcast, and I think we're somewhere in the low 80s as we normally are.
Yeah, I mean, what, does it ever change? You don't even have to look at the weather report, do you?
Oh no, I mean,
I would argue that it's nicer in Pittsburgh right now than St. Lucia.
Oh, we get down to the high 70s, you know. It's like long sleeve weather for my wife. Absolutely. Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Pippa, and hi, Judy, and everybody. Sean, just wonderful as usual to listen to you guys. Pippa, my question to you is: have you ever done a character with an accent, like a French accent?
Well, you know, I had a British daddy. I'm the daughter of a diplomat. So I grew up with this sort of thing, and there would be lots of cocktail parties at our home, and then there would be all those other English dialects, because my parents had, or the great of the UK, I should say, my parents had a theatre background. So yes, dialects and accents are, I often incorporate those, especially in that show about Ellis Island, because it occurred to me, I went and visited Ellis Island, which is, many of you have probably seen it. It's a wonderful museum now. And when I was in the gift store there, I thought, there's something here for me, because everybody who came through Ellis Island had either a dialect or an accent. Every single one of them. So yes, I do that. And I think it's important. Nick is your name? Nick?
Yes.
Right. Okay. I think it's important because, you know, if there's going to be all me for over an hour, I think that some vocal variety is important.
Have you ever done French, a French accent?
Yes. Let me get, okay. So let me get one of my resistance characters. Oh, you're not going to send me to the militia, are you? You know how the men of the militia are. They are not like you. And then it's really brilliant. She says, you see, it was a stroke of brilliance to say that. You see, by that time I had learned, if you treat a man like a gentleman, very often he will behave like one. This was a resistance fighter who was always upbeat and was arrested 3 times. Once she escaped. I have such admiration for the people who were what I call soldiers, but not in uniform.
Absolutely.
World War II, you know. So does that pass, Nick?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I love the English sprinklings as well. And Todd is just putting up here a little blurb about Miss Martha Cohn, who I don't know if you're familiar with her story, but it certainly is one that is well worth looking into. And she's going to feature Todd on the 27th of July.
Correct. Yes. And I thought the same exact thing, like, ooh, when I saw that your program on the resistance and then on spies, I thought of Martha Cohen, who is 99 years old. She still does travel the world telling her story. She was a Jewish girl living in France when Germany invaded. The Germans hauled off her sister to Auschwitz. I think her family, some of her family survived by fleeing, but she stayed and she posed as a German nurse. And actually, when she talks today, Nick, I detect a strong kind of German inflection to her French accent, if that makes any sense. Like she's from Alsace-Lorraine, and you can see how that she could pass for German.
Sure.
She crossed the border into Germany, changed her name, posed as a German nurse, and the entire time she was a intelligence operative for the French resistance and then the French army. So she was a spy. And like Julia, she, after the war, she never told her story, and only fairly recently has begun sharing her story. She wrote memoirs, and there's a wonderful documentary about her that we're going to screen on Tuesday, July 27th. And then we're going to have Martha herself sharing her, taking questions and sharing her story. So, boy, I'm sure she would be. I want to make sure to get you this information, Pippa, so that you could meet her and hear her story.
Oh, I would love that. I've been writing this down with you, what you have posted here, what you have on the screen right now. That would be just wonderful, Todd. That's just exciting. And there are so many of these people who did this. Yeah, I will go circle July 27th right now.
Yeah, it's great. Does anybody have any other comments or questions for Pippa?
I was only saying that Pippa needs to add a Pittsburgh accent to her toolbox.
Pittsburgh, and I find another one that I find very hard is Boston. I can do the New York one, I can do the Brooklyn and all that, but Boston I find hard. And so if there's you said Pittsburgh, then it'll be hard. As is Minnesota, I find a little difficult. And the people in the world of dialects and everything, there are regionalisms and there are dialects, and then there are some that are kind of on the edge. So give me did you say Pittsburgh?
Oh, Pittsburgh is just like talking with a bunch of marbles in your mouth, and you get really lazy with whatever you're trying to say. You're going to go down to Permanis and watch Stillers play and you say and that after everything. My grandma was very famous for saying and that. She would double and that. I don't know why, but that's what she would do.
Oh, that's fascinating. There you go. You should do something with that.
Oh, it's quite an accent.
It is.
I mean, it's like nothing you've ever heard. It's like unlike any accent across the country.
So you wouldn't hear this in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh, no.
No.
Oh my gosh, no. You don't. It's a long story, but it's hyper regional, hyper local. So you go even a few hours from Pittsburgh and you'll hear something kind of like it, but it's its own distinct, maybe West Virginia twang or Eastern Ohio twang. And yeah, it's hyper local. It does not reach very far from this part of the Ohio Valley, the head of the Ohio. So yeah, it's really, I've been fascinated with it for a long time.
Pennsylvania Dutch. That's what Mark Spiridigliosi says.
Maybe. I don't know. I've heard it's Appalachian. That is a distinctive variant of the Appalachian accent. Eric Allard, why do you have smiley faces all around your screen? I love it. Are you particularly happy today for any particular reason?
Happy I woke up this morning.
That's good. I like it. Yes, we have a low bar here at the Veterans Breakfast Club. Any other comments or questions here for Pippa? This was great. Thank you very much, Pippa. And I do hope that you join us again.
Oh,
and
thank you for having me. And I will certainly join you. I hope you'll send me an invite for the 27th. That sounds just fascinating.
I know if you can go into the chat here, also, Ellie put in the link to register for the 27th is right there in the chat.
Okay.
Greg Yost, do you want to expound a little bit on the Pittsburgh accent?
Maybe. Pittsburgh's accent is derived from a Scots-Irish form of English, which got trapped in the Appalachians. The Appalachians is, of course, a very Scots-Irish culture and tradition. probably the single most famous form would be the English language does not have a very good plural, second person plural. For example, we use the word you, meaning both singular and plural. Various accents and dialects have come up with you all, the Southern accent, you all. In Pittsburgh, the Scots-Irish form plural of the second person is you ones. So if I were to refer to you, Todd, I would say you, but if I were referring to the group, I would say you ones, which got shortened to you ones, yuns, yins. So the
Yinsers.
Pittsburgh plural of second person plural is yins. Yins going to the Steelers game in that. So it's the single most famous version of it, but there are 57 varieties of Pittsburgh dialect. But
There sure are. 57 variety, but yuns is kind of an anchor of them all. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that, Greg. Hey, we have a few minutes left, and I did want to notice, I read something. I'm not a gun person or gun expert at all, but I have noticed for the past several months that this is and it's kind of unbelievable to me, the 100th anniversary of the 50 caliber machine gun. How many weapons have been used continually for 100 years? I mean, what is it about that weapon that makes it, so it gives it such longevity? I mean, it's been modified obviously over the years, but I also have noticed that because of the 100th anniversary, I think there has been a lot of historical interest in the creator of the 50 caliber machine gun, who's also the creator of essentially the Colt 45 and every other Browning weapon, John Moses Browning. And there's a new biography of him, and I could share the information on that. John Moses Browning was born in the mid 19th century, and he is truly, it is not an exaggeration to say that he's a genius. I mean, he should be considered up there with the Wright brothers and with Henry Ford and with Thomas Edison. And that he isn't, I think, is because of the line of work he was in. I mean, we're not as a culture going to kind of celebrate a developer necessarily of firearms. But I think he should be remembered for his genius. And here is the book. Let me see if I can find the link here to here it is. Here's the new biography of him. I haven't read it, but I've read several reviews of it. And if you want to check it out, I think some of you might be interested. The Guns of John Moses Browning, the remarkable story of the inventor whose firearms changed the world, by Nathan Gorenstein. And it's a Simon & Schuster book. And what's interesting about a lot of people who are interesting historically are not the kind of people necessarily that Pippa would want to dramatize on the stage, because other than what made them famous, they led really boring lives. And John Moses Browning is like that. He did nothing but tinker with guns. That's all he did. He was monosyllabic. He didn't talk very much. He never changed expression. And what he liked to do was to work with machines. And that's what his guns were. They were machines. And he would perfect them and work with them endlessly. But apart from that, he didn't have a very interesting life. Well, his young life must have been interesting. He was one of 22 children.
Oh my gosh.
His father had 3 wives at the same time. He was a polygamist, Mormon, Utah. He created his first gun at age 10. He dropped out of school at age 15 because his teacher told him, "Kid, we've taught you as much as we could possibly teach you." So he did. I mean, he was truly a genius, one of these, Western Henry Ford type geniuses that come around every once in a while. And again, I think the reason that he's not talked about on par with Henry Ford is because of the industry that he was in. I mean, we don't want to celebrate people who make their livings, creating killing machines, which is what John Moses Browning did. And I'm just wondering if any of you have any kind of experience with the 50 caliber machine gun or any of the you know, Browning automatic rifles, the BAR, all the other, the Colt 45, which was a sidearm. Jim Roberts, yes.
The BAR was, we had that in Vietnam for the People's Self-Defense Force. And so we worked with it at Bragg, 50 caliber machine gun. We had a couple on the perimeter. And one nice thing about them from memory, and this is 50 years ago, is they were fairly simple. I mean, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard to teach using a translator, or if you were working with, like for the Cambodians and mountain yards, we didn't have translators. It wasn't that hard to show them how to take it apart and put it back together. As far as the 50 is concerned, it was just reliable. I mean, it was just an outstanding weapon, and you know, put it together, take it apart fairly quickly, and it worked.
And that, you know, that's it. It's the same principle that of Henry Ford's Model T. Is it's not that it was the first car, it wasn't. It's not that it was the fastest car, it wasn't. It's not that it was the best car, the biggest car. It's that it was simple, that it could work almost anywhere. You could fix it yourself. It worked in the country, worked in the city, easily repaired. It lasted forever. You could buy it in any color as long as it was black. Very much like the 50 cal. And Jim, you remind me, I have a picture here. I'll share it, of a 50 cal, I believe, of yours in Vietnam. And this is what I thought when you were talking. Isn't this something that you kind of cobbled together from parts?
And after we experienced our second attack at the camp, our two sergeants went shopping, and they came back with a bunch of spare parts, and we put them together into a 50 caliber plus an extra receiver. And the C ration box is what they brought the spare parts back in. So they went out and bargained for it. And they bargained for it probably with a flag.
And they bargained for it with a flag. Oh my gosh. I'm sending that out in an email tomorrow, Jim, by the way. That story, that is, I think I didn't fully realize it when I ran across that little fact in your book. I think it was underplayed in your book. Okay, let's go to, that's another discussion. John DeLallo and Mark, what do you have to say? Oh, let's go to John first. John DeLallo.
Hey, well, first of all, I survived first grade.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I just wanted, before you say any more, John DeLallo spent this spring teaching first grade. This is a retired master sergeant.
Yes.
Air Force master sergeant teaching first graders. I don't know if I should feel sorry for you or the first graders.
Actually, I got a lot more out of it than I put into it. The kids were just starved for attention, and I guess I look like everybody's grandpap. So we got along pretty well, actually.
Because they can be rough. First graders can be rough.
Oh yeah. The fourth graders are the worst, because that's their last year in that elementary school, and then they're the big shots and they're moving on. But I don't want to digress too far. I did get some other classes, some high school seniors and some other kids. But you were talking about John Moses Browning. Man was a genius.
Totally.
The 1911, or the model of 1911 pistol was adopted in 1911, invented in 1909. And Todd, I'm rather fascinated with handguns as well as long guns. And I can tell you that the 45 pistol, there's never been anything invented that is more ergonomically correct. You pick it up and point it and shoot it, and you hit right what you're shooting for. But one little quick factoid, Browning was a genius. He took the 1903 Springfield round, okay? And he was commissioned. He says, we need something big enough to knock down these crazy Filipinos that are all doped up. And the 38s, they're just bouncing off of them. We want something with some punch. He figured out how to create a 230 grain ball ammo, okay, full metal jacket ammo, that had a lot of knockdown power. And what he did, he took a 30-06 round, or an 03A3 round that had been around obviously since 1903, lopped it off, okay, developed a bullet, which guess what, ends up being 0.45 nominally in diameter, stuffs it in this chopped off piece of a Springfield 30-06 round, and voila, you got the 45 ACP.
You have the 45. Yes. And Mark Sperdigliosi.
Yeah, just quickly, Todd, you know that I am a student of Custer. And one of the facts that's little known about Custer is the East Cavalry Field at Gettysburg, where he, and I think I told you the other night, took on Jeb Stuart and beat him. But he did so because he had the Spencer repeating rifle, which was a 52 caliber, which I think that Browning may have developed upon as it came through. But that was the first use of it, and he had 350 of those rifles issued to the 1st or the 7th Michigan Cavalry that he used to help to defeat that. So the first actual use of a repeating rifle in warfare was done by George Armstrong Custer, General Custer, at 23 years old at that point in Gettysburg.
Right, before he was demoted to colonel.
Well, yeah, he was.
Not really demoted, but
that,
yeah.
Well, we all get that sometimes. It was, back then you didn't have an Article 15. They just took the stripes away, I think.
Right. And you know, I understand with our epidemic of gun violence in the United States that we don't want to maybe celebrate gun culture or something like that. But when you're talking with veterans, these weapons are your tools of the trade. I mean, they're what keep you alive. They're what allow you to accomplish your mission. They're incredibly important. They could win or lose a war for you. They could make the suffering in war worse than it has to be. These are really important things, and a bad weapon could just, make your life miserable, as people who had maybe used the early versions of the M16s would know. So I think John Moses Browning absolutely should be known and discussed and celebrated even more than he is. So I thought we would talk a little bit about it. I'm going to maybe try to do a blog post about at least the 50 caliber machine gun. And I want to talk further about it. I do see it's 10:35, and I know I have an appointment coming up. So I just want to say goodbye to everybody and thank you all for joining us. Pippa, thank you. Sean, thank you for being here. I'll see you guys. Have a good, beautiful Wednesday. And maybe we'll see you on Monday night, shall we? All right.